you may feel the need to go back and watch. That's great. So everything's public record, including the meeting. So that's the reason why we are recording and will publish the meeting on our webpage. So we do have a PowerPoint for you to review this evening. I'm going to start on that here in just a moment. The PowerPoint will be also put on our webpage, so you can go back and look at that as well. So, Robert, if you would please start the PowerPoint up. Okay, so again, good evening. My name is Stephen Sparks, and I am the long-range planning administrator for the Beaverton School District. I'll be facilitating this evening's meeting. And with me this evening is Robert McCracken, who is our demographer. And we have several other district staff also in attendance here this evening. I would ask you, because this is a Zoom meeting, if you would please change the label on your Zoom to show that it's, your name, so it's not like a nickname or a number or something like that, because we want to be sure that we're noting who you are and we call you by your name when we get to the public testimony section. As I said, we have a number of slides that we're going to review with you this evening. And tonight, our expectations for this meeting are as one, we want to listen to you in what you have to say about our boundary proposal. And also to assure you, no decisions have been made yet. The superintendent will be making a decision, and I will go into that more here later. And to the extent that I'm able to do so, I will answer questions that you have tonight. And if we don't have answers for you this evening, we will prepare a supplemental memo that we will publish on our webpage within the next week to respond to those questions. So let's go to our first slide with our agenda. So we've done the first thing with introductions, and we're going to get into the project over here in a moment. And I want to be sure you know here from the beginning, we have received the alternative proposal from the community. We have done some analysis of that, and we will talk about that this evening as well. So if we can go to the next step, or next slide, please. So here we are tonight with our first meeting, and we will be meeting in person. There's an opportunity to meet in person at Findlay Elementary on Wednesday. It is a short visit because there is a PTO meeting on Wednesday, which will begin at 7 p.m. So we'll have a short opportunity to be at the school. You can talk to the principal at that time. We can look around a little bit and kind of get an orientation to that school. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are basic background of why we're doing this and what we have to review this proposal to. So as we'll show later, that there is a lot of growth going on in the Bonny Slope area, and as a result, the enrollment has been increasing and currently exceeds the permanent capacity of the building. We also have very limited opportunities to increase the size of that building. And one of the benefits of the proposal is that it will be able to remove at least one bus from one bus route, with creating a walk zone for the Thompson Woods area to Findlay. Next slide, please. The school board has adopted policies covering the gamut of the board, the school district's operation. And one of the policies is dealing with attendance boundary adjustments. Now, there are 4 factors that we consider in doing boundary adjustments, And none of the factors outweigh another. They are of equal value, and they also have more bearing on others in case-specific issues. I'm not making a judgment on any of these factors yet for the benefits of this proposal, but you can see here these are the 4 factors that we have to keep in mind when we're looking at a boundary adjustment. So when the superintendent issues his decision, we'll have findings that address these 4 factors in supporting the superintendent's decision. Next slide, please. We also went to the board last spring, and the board creates objectives for boundary adjustments, all boundary adjustments. And you can see here the 2 objectives that we are tasked with meeting when we do this boundary adjustment. What will happen is later this year, when we go to the board, the school board, you'll see that we will present to the board the superintendent's decision and how the proposal meets these objectives. So next slide, please. So this map should be familiar to you all. This is what we mailed out to everyone in the notice. You will note here that we have in yellow text 3 grid codes. The district is divided into grid codes, and that's how we establish our boundaries for all of our schools and how we track our enrollment for each of the schools. And we do that by grid code. I believe we received a comment or a question about, hey, what about the specific neighborhood? We don't track that, but if we drill down into our database, we could probably find, I know we would find students by address, but that is, an awful lot of work. And I think as I go along here, you'll understand how the grid code system works. So you see here are 3 grid codes that we're looking at. And grid code 130 is obviously our Thompson Woods neighborhood, south of Ward Creek. Grid code 1142, that's on the east side of Laidlaw Road, that is outside the urban growth boundary. So it has a much more limited development potential than the other 2 grid codes. And grid code 1151, which is north of Ward Creek, which has been, many of you who have submitted comment, this is the area that in which you reside. So next slide, please. So this also should look familiar to you. This is the alternative adjustment that you have submitted to us, and one that we have been looking at. We have in the next slide a slight adjustment to this proposal that I think you'll see is reasonably consistent with what this option proposes, and that's this slide right here. Because we go by grid code, this is substantially the same thing as was proposed by the community alternative, which is we move 1 grid code, which is grid code 130, off to Findlay Elementary, and grid codes 1151 and 1142 would remain at Bonny Slope. The impact, or not the impact, the outcome of our alternative to the community alternative is substantially the same in terms of numbers of students being moved. And in looking at this also, I would like to also acknowledge one of the things that was submitted in the alternative was getting rid of the, or no longer having the pre-K program at Bonny Slope. I'll get to that in a moment. We haven't neglected that one as well. Next slide, please. So in blue here, these are areas in which development has occurred or is taking place. So if you you look at like the yellow arrows there, those are areas that are underway right now in that are being developed. So we know that there are students that are going to come from this. And, you know, most of the area has already been built out in the blue, but not entirely. You can see here up in the top right corner, I've got a comment saying that you can't see the slide. Can everybody see the blue slide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. So you'll see up in the right corner there about the remaining residential capacity. So we're calculating this for these two grid codes based on the amount of development that could occur in this area. So you look at the numbers in black. Those are vacant lots. We have no knowledge of them being going through a land development process or anything like that. This is just a number of potential dwelling units that could be placed on those properties as determined by Metro. So we have to understand that there's a lot of wiggle room with this, that when it goes to Washington County, if it goes to Washington County for land use approval, the numbers will be different, but it gives us an order of magnitude of what we think is potential development out there. Now you'll see our multiplier of 0.33 students per dwelling unit. 0.33 kindergarten through 5th grade student. This is derived from the actual number of students per dwelling unit that we're seeing in this area right now. So we're extrapolating that the same type of student ratio per household will happen in those areas. Okay, next slide, please. So this slide here is our resident student count for the Bonny Slope and Findlay boundaries. Now, resident enrollment is important to understand because this is the number of kids that attend a Beaverton School District school that live in this area. So the numbers that you see here might be a little bit different than what the actual enrollment is for different reasons. So for example, we might have Findlay students that are not going to a Findlay elementary. They might be going to a different elementary school for a different reason. So the actual enrollment and the resident enrollment will be slightly different. You can see on the right-hand side with Findlay, since 2014, there has been a steady decline of enrollment, largely because this neighborhood has matured and we're not having the same refill rate that we do in newer neighborhoods. Over here in Bonny Slope, you can see how development has, or the enrollment has been fairly consistent. But then if you look at the colored bars on top of the yellow, that is the number of students from each of the 3 grid codes. And you can see that they have been growing over the past 3 years because new development has been coming online, houses are being sold, and more students are coming in. So the resident population for the other grid codes has been fairly constant because they're not seeing the same amount of new development. Now, this shows all of the grid codes of the current boundaries for both schools. Okay, Robert, next slide. So again, this is for moving all 3 grid codes to Findlay, what you see right here. So this again is about resident students for both Bonny Slope, and Findlay, if all three grid codes are moved. You will see that on the Bonny Slope side, we will get down below the permanent capacity at Bonny Slope. The blue number is like a high growth estimate, and the purple number and purple line is kind of a low growth estimate projection for us. Over on the right-hand side, you will see Findlay have a substantial increase potentially, or a still a bigger growth than what they are today if we moved all three grid codes. One of the ways, also one of the important factors here on the graph is you will see a light gray, which is the permanent capacity of the building, and the darker gray on top of it is, in the Findlay example, portable capacity, and on the Bonny Slope side is the pre-K classroom if the pre-K program were to leave Bonny Slope. Now, on the pre-K program, that is a teaching and learning decision. Teaching and learning has been made well aware of your suggestion to move the pre-K to another location to free up this classroom. This process is not the process by which that decision will be made. There is, it is a BSD program. It will be reviewed through the budget process. And I will encourage you during the budget process to stay invested, stay involved, and provide that comment through the budget process that moving the program to another location would be good for your school, for capacity reasons and other reasons that you might have. So just trying to spell out expectations with respect to the pre-K here. Next slide, please. So this slide is the same as the prior one, except it is for moving one grid code. That is that grid code 130, which is the Thompson Woods area south of Ward Creek. And you can see here that with the high growth scenario for Bonny Slope, we're still over capacity at the school by about 40-ish students. And at Findlay, we're at the high end, we're below the total capacity, but we certainly would require the use of the portables. So this one is kind of, splitting the cake, if you will, between the two schools. Next slide, please. So I think you've seen this before, but this is our transportation map. The areas in green, regardless of option that is looked at, is a transportation zone, which means buses will be provided. The orange color which is the Thompson Woods area, is a walk zone, and transportation would not be provided to students who will attend Findlay from this zone. Next slide. And as we measure the 1 mile definition for walk zone, it's basically door to door, and in the most, not create a circle around Findlay of 1 mile. It's measuring the walking distance to all students here, and you can see the distance, the worst case distance for students who would then be walking to Findlay. Next slide. So the legacy program is another subject we've heard a lot of questions and comments about. Our legacy program is an opt-in program. So it's something that families will need to say, I want my child to remain at Bonny Slope. And what we have identified in the staff report, which has been the reason why we've been receiving so much comment on this, is that the eligibility for legacy will be for current fourth graders who will be fifth graders next year. Those would be the only students eligible for that legacy program. One of the comments we did see is that we allowed more in the Sawtelle Springville boundary adjustment. And that's true, we did. We were dealing with far fewer students in that case. And that is the only example of that kind of legacy program that the district has done. Now, again, decision has not been made here, but I want to, assure you, we're hearing your comments, but the issue is to create room at Bonny Slope, and not being able to move students to Findlay will not solve that problem. So we hear you. Again, no decision is made, but this is going to be a tough one because we just need to create the room at Bonny Slope. Next slide, please. So here is our timeline for how this is going to play out. We expect in early November that we will have the superintendent. He will publish his decision. Once that decision has been published, and it will be published on our webpage, there will be a 10 calendar day comment period on that decision. So the superintendent will receive those, he will consider those comments, and if he wants to revise his decision, he will do so at the end of that comment period. We are looking to go to the school board for a presentation and first reading of the change at their December 12th board meeting. We will publish those materials before the meeting, so you'll have a chance to review them. And there will be an adoption meeting at their January 17th meeting. And again, after the beginning of the new year, those materials will also be published. Next slide. Okay, and that's it for my presentation. So thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry I went about 5 minutes longer than I wanted to here. So we're going to begin public testimony here. I'd like to be able to get everyone to participate. I see that we have 71 people in the room. We're not going to be able to get everybody in this evening. We're going to go for an hour, and we will call people randomly to come and testify. So when I call your name, please turn on your camera and obviously unmute yourself, and we will start the testimony. There will be a clock on the screen for testimony. Feel free to ask questions, but we're not going to, we want to hear from as many people as possible, so we're not going to get into question and answer as we go along. We will keep track of those questions. We've got lots of people here who will be doing that, so you're taking notes, so we'll respond to them as best we can. If I call your name and someone else has already covered your comments and you want to say, yes, I agree, and turn it over to another person, that is fine. If you want to spend the full 2 minutes saying, something substantially similar, or if not the same as somebody else, that's okay too. We just want to be sure that we provide as many opportunities for folks to speak as we can. So with that, Robert, are you ready with our clock? And if you don't see me looking at you as you're speaking, it's because I'm taking notes. So please don't be offended. And Debbie, why don't you start us off with folks who calling on folks to speak.
Okay, I'm going to ask anybody who wishes to speak to please do the raise your hand, and that'll let us know. I know not everyone is going to want to participate in that.
And I do want to emphasize that this is random. We'll go through as many people as we can to do this. So okay. Debbie, why don't you go ahead and get us started here.
Okay, let's have Tu Tran first, and then after Tu Tran will be Erica Amrine, and then we will have Allison Gracias third. Do we have two?
Two?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, two, if you could turn your camera on, please, and we'll get going.
It doesn't let me to turn it on right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
I got two questions though. First is like, what triggered the proposal? Is it because of the bus expenses or the number of students?
Number of students.
So according to the chart, like in 2019, 600 and something, and 2020 it dropped to 500 and something. So it doesn't guarantee that the survey will work. History will repeat, right? So it could be like today's pick at 680, but you know, next year is gonna be like 450. You know, who knows? So you know, it still stay in one standard deviation of the numbers charts that I'm reading there. So I don't know like why, you know, that will determine the decisions. I'm just curious.
Okay. Anything else?
And my son, he loved the buses. Like now, if you take the buses away from him, he's gonna be really sad. And you know, it's hard for him to make friends already. So you know, just the bus is the only thing motivate him to go to school right now. If I say, hey, Zane, you know, get up, you know, you gotta go to school, he's not gonna wake up. But I'm saying you're gonna miss the bus, then he's automatically just like jump up and you know and run. So just FYI.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Erica Amrine.
Okay, so I had like a prepared statement, but I think I'm just gonna try and wing it. Basically, at Bonny Slope this year, the theme is Stronger Together, and that's something that I feel like for my kids, we moved here in 2020. I figured based on location, we were gonna go to Findlay, and we were told we were in Bonny Slope, so we got registered and we started online first grade for my son, and it didn't take long. We were part of the community, and I feel like that's really important to my kids. The theme for Stronger Together involves school spirit, and they're both really, really into being Bobcats. They love being part of the community. And my son is a buddy with a first grader. He's in third grade right now. He helps some of the kindergartners go to the bus. So that's something for me that's really important, is that we're part of the community. I also volunteer at the school, and I know that there's a lot of us that are being asked to take our kids to Findlay that are highly involved in volunteering. And I think that's really important to consider as well. I think that based on all of the things that have gone on in the last couple of years, there's a lot of change. There's a lot of things that we've had to work through, and my kids have done really well at Bonny Slope, even in the face of all of that. And so for me, it's more about the community and where the kids are at for their school experience now that we have put down roots. If we were told to go to Findlay 2 years ago, I would have done it and put down our roots there, and that's not how it went. So after hearing everything tonight and knowing that it's not an easy decision, there's no perfect solution, it kind of sounds like the community submitted alternative isn't exactly right. But I think that if we redraw the map so that grid 130 does have to go to Findlay, and then we amend the legacy program to give the option to grid 1151 and 1142 the chance to sign up for the program, eventually even my first grader will age out and the numbers will start to go down, and every new sale and construction in the area will have to go to Findlay. And I think that might help alleviate some of the attendance issues. So I know that for our family, we really want to stay at Bonny Slope if there's any way to, because of the community. And I think that's what we want to do to maintain as much consistency and stability for our kids, and make sure that we affect the least amount of children as possible with this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Allison Gracias. And after Allison will be Sam Gordon and Amelia Ryan.
Hi, good evening. I actually mostly just have some questions regarding the decision. One is, I recognize that Bonny Slope, the class sizes are quite large. And I was wondering, like, with this new boundary decision, can you predict what the class sizes are going to be like at Findlay? I guess I don't know if you can answer that at this point, but you know, that's a big factor in having to decide or to see how this is really going to impact our kids, is class sizes, because then it determines like how much attention they get from the teachers. And then will Findlay increase the number of teachers to manage the number of the increase in students? Will they open up more classrooms for, say, grade 1 or whichever classes end up getting an increase in students? And was there ever a consideration to so because Division 130, it like there's no more growth, and like there's no more housing going to be added to that area, so the number of students should be relatively fixed, whereas the other areas are still under development, so there's no way to predict how many students would increase. Was there ever a consideration to do it the other way and keep the 130 in the Bonny Slope area, whereas considering the growth in the other sections to move them to Findlay?
So those are a number of questions that we'll certainly be able to answer.
Okay.
I can't answer them at this moment because it's going to take a while to answer them.
Okay.
But that's something we can certainly provide an answer to.
So how would the feedback, like how would we find out those answers? Would you be posting them somewhere, or?
That's correct. We'll be doing a supplemental memo that we'll put on our webpage within this, hopefully next few days, but within a week, we'll put that on there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Sam Gordon.
All right, hi. Are we good? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Good,
so thank you to Erica. Everything you said was amazing, and we +1 and agree with everything that you said. We moved to this area to go to Bonny Slope. We came from the east side of Portland because the school district was not good, to be perfectly frank. And this is a school that we targeted, and we found a house in this area, and we're very excited for our daughter to finish Bonny Slope. She's in 3rd grade. She has 2 more years. We live in the area 1142. I think we're the only elementary school aged kid on our entire road. We very much like this alternative proposal of keeping 1142 in the Bonny Slope area if there's a way to extend the legacy thing to include third graders and below, we would totally sign up for that. One of our main concerns is we really appreciate the student stop offering that is the after school care. From all my research, I can't find something at Findlay that they offer something comparable. Our daughter loves student stop. And if we tell her that she's not going to be able to do it anymore, she's going to be devastated. Like Erica's kid, she has a buddy that's in first grade. Some of her best friends are in grades lower than third grade that she has met in student stop. And that's because of that community that has been built around Bonny Slope. We just did the jogathon and, you know, did the max donation like we do every year because she just loves this school and our family rallies around it. And, you know, we haven't even broken it to her that this is a possibility. And if we have to, she's going to be devastated. So whatever we got to do to figure out how to keep her there for 2 more years, that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Amelia Ryan. And after Amelia will be William Cabell and Jesse Hibbsman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to hold this town hall and to give us time to talk and to reflect. I would just like to request that the same type of analysis that was done on our area of the boundary is done in all of the subsequent other boundary areas of the district. So we're able to actually see if indeed in the future that the other areas won't develop faster, because I think, as Erica had mentioned, there's not much of land left in our area for development. And so in order to make, I think, the best decision, we should consider all areas of the boundaries and consider all opportunities of growth and what that would lead to, not just fiscally, but also how this affects our children's emotional well-being. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, William Cabell.
Hi, thank you so much for taking public comment. Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Sparks. It was pretty enlightening. I have 2 points that I guess stand out to me. One is by the numbers on your deck. If we move both grid codes 1151 and 130, then Findlay is going to be drastically over capacity at 808. If we move just one, then Bonny Slope remains slightly over. So it seems like either option, we're still kind of in a bad situation. So I don't know how much this plan fixes anything. Secondly, I wanted to touch base on the safety issue that is where Saltzman Road runs into Laidlaw. I don't know how many of you drive out that road, but it's like an old farming road that is really curvy. It goes over a very narrow bridge. The best way to describe that road is dangerous. I'm actually shocked that we are sending buses through there currently, and no disrespect to Miss Shelley, she's the best bus driver in the world, but it's dangerous what we're doing to our kids. And if we move both 1151 to Findlay, that's just more kids going through that dangerous road every day. The road is so dangerous, in fact, that the city and the county have plans to make a safer connection between Saltzman and Laidlaw, but those plans haven't been funded yet, and there's no way they would be done before 2025, 2026. So from a safety aspect, I think there is some substantial problems in the original redistricting plan. Thank you so much for and as a third comment, as an aside, I would like to ask the district if Findlay is going to be overcrowded or Bonny Slope is going to be overcrowded, no matter which of these plans we take, is there a third option? I know that Terra Linda has 306 students, Cedar Mill has 367. It seems like there would be other areas that would solve this problem rather than just kind of kicking it down the road to one school or the other. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jesse Hibbsman. And after Jesse is Danielle Pavloni and Irva Hannigan.
I first want to +1 to Will's comment that feels a little bit like we're kicking the can down the road, trying to solve one problem and creating more. I have one child at Bonny Slope. We just relocated to Portland, moved to this neighborhood for the sense of community for our family. And one of the major reasons we were drawn to this neighborhood was because of Bonny Slope. It's hard not to feel like this was a lack of foresight from the district, and these developments did not pop up overnight. So it feels a little rushed on the, I guess, the consumer side of the screen. This could have been dealt with before the homes were built and the families had moved in. Our kindergartner has never known normal or consistency during the pandemic. We're so excited to start here. He could finally put roots down and build a community of friends and teachers. He loves his teacher, loves the school, loves the community. And this is a huge one, is the aftercare program in Student Stop. That has been a lifesaver for us. And so that was my number one concern when reading about this, kind of beyond just uprooting him from his community that he has just started building. Consistency and normalcy for children and families after COVID is mission critical for the development of our kiddos, and we assumed we were finally moving into a stable school environment. We know COVID has already been detrimental to our kids' development and mental health, and now it's finally back within our own control to not continue to do more harm. All right, I will skip ahead. I hope that y'all are able to take into consideration the counter proposals to do the least amount of harm to the least amount of kids as possible, while also trying to solve this really complex issue, because we understand that there is a problem to be solved here. So thank you all for listening, and thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Danielle Pavloni.
Right. Thanks, Jesse. I totally agree with so many of the things that you've said. I had a big prepared statement, but I'm going to kind of go through it per part since we've talked about a lot of it at all. My main concern, obviously, is that right now we have a third grade classroom that's in a makeshift classroom in the library, and that's not acceptable. But I also think that the fact that these enrollment issues were not addressed before all of these homes were developed is also unacceptable. We've all moved in, our families have created community, and we're finally finding some stability after the pandemic. The Portland State University forecast study that was done for the school district showed, it was from 2019, and it showed that this specific school year would have 702 enrolled children. We knew about this a long time ago, and yet these homes were still zoned for Bonny Slope. And Bonny Slope has been running over its permanent capacity for the last 9 years, according to that study as well. Sorry, I'm going off track. So since then, 80 homes have been built. They're all in Bonny Slope. And now just in the past 2 years, these families have moved in, and now you're trying to move the children, which is really unfortunate after 2 years of unstable pandemic education. In the long range facility plan that was done in May in 2021, the need to address overcrowding at Bonny Slope was mentioned numerous times there as well. And in this document, as well as in the future study, the need to involve the community far in advance was a prominent focus. Quote, these efforts typically require extensive work with the community and must be planned a significant amount of time prior to the implementation date. However, from our side, this was only first brought up to our community 2 weeks ago, when this knowledge has been present for years, and our involvement really kind of feels like it wasn't solicited. And I do fully appreciate that you've taken the counter proposal and incorporated it into the plan right now. The adjustment just seems kind of poorly timed and executed, and feels like it's punishing our children after years of pandemic related stress, and they just don't really deserve to carry the responsibility for that.
Ms. Pavloni, your time is up. So if you could
Oh, sure.
do
Yeah.
kind of a final statement and we can move on.
Yeah. Just trying to say that I'm just asking you to consider the proposal as it kind of does the least harm to the most amount of children and splits between the two schools. Thanks.
Debbie, I don't have a note who you called on for next.
Sorry, I needed to unmute myself. It's Irva Hannigan, and after Irva is Namita Chadha and Haley Steck. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing people's names.
All right, so I want to thank you guys for giving us such a thorough explanation of this process and breaking down the numbers. That was helpful. And I do want to say that, I think we all understand that Bonny Slope is over capacity. There has to be a change. We have to move some kids. And I think, the opposition is definitely not to Findlay itself, which is a great school with a great community. It's more the disruption, as so many of us have already said. The last few years with COVID have been really hard and disruptive. So to force another big change upon our kids and even on us as parents is really hard. And it's something we would like to avoid. I also think that, as other people have said, the way this came about felt a little bit sudden and a little bit behind the scenes. We were hearing rumors of high numbers at Bonny Slope, but there wasn't really an official acknowledgement of that. We didn't, get anything besides that letter in the mail that came out after the website was up. It just kind of felt like maybe you were avoiding trying to get community input or even awareness. And so I think that took us all by surprise, which of course doesn't help. But my big concerns are, like others have said, that this is just going to swing the pendulum of overcapacity over to Findlay. We are hearing from parents there that they already have classes that are, 25 to 28 students. They do have a couple classrooms empty, but they are still using portables. Their own principal is telling parents that she only expects 50 students to transfer. Since your proposal is around 130, we're just wondering how exactly that works out. Are we looking at big classes, limited space, all the same concerns we're facing right now? Also, just concerns that this is just kind of a temporary Band-Aid fix, and that we'll be looking at being shuffled around yet again in a few years when boundary lines get redrawn as needed. So I think that counter proposal that moves half the students might be a good in between there. So thank you so much for taking our input today.
Thank you.
Okay. Namita.
Hi, somehow I'm not able to share my video. I don't know why. Okay, so, we moved to this house just because Bonny Slope was the school here. And secondly, the bus was a big difference, made a big difference why we made the decision to move into unit 130 and in Thompson Woods. And so we definitely don't want the buses to stop, even if we move to Findlay. And the other thing is that, I have a fourth grader, and even if I opt for the legacy and she would be continuing to Bonny Slope, I have a younger one who would be starting kindergarten. It's going to be hard for me to, keep on top of when the bus is coming from Bonny Slope, or to walk my younger one to the Findlay. And then, if I'm going to pick up my younger one at Findlay, who's going to take care when the bus comes here for my elder one? So it's going to cause a lot of confusion. And I guess, being parents, it's hard for us to explain to the kids, because we've been telling our younger one that he's been going to go with his big sister next year along with her in the bus. And it's hard for us to, break out to him that everything is being changed now and he's going to go alone. And he definitely needs help when he goes to a new school. And if his elder sibling is there, it makes things very easy for them. So I definitely would appreciate if 130 still stays within the Bonny Slope. And thank you, Erica. A huge shout out to you. You just did and covered every point fabulously. Thank you so much for doing that. Thanks.
Okay, next up is Haley Steck. And after Haley is Diego Saldana and Lilik Farkesh.
Yeah, this is Haley Steck. My video, I'm not going to turn it on, so I apologize. But I do just want to say that I think everyone has talked a lot about this already, but these kids have been through a lot through the pandemic. It really has been trying on them. They have had to do online school, and they're just now, at least for my children, I have a third grader and a first grader, but they're just now settling in. And I feel like to disrupt the slight amount of rhythm that they're beginning to get, and I understand the community proposal and the school district's proposal and all of that, but I do want to say that I think just adjusting any child right now after living through a pandemic for 2.5 years, or it just seems a little bit not really considering children and their development and their growth and the community that they have built. I think we as adults can all understand numbers, and we can understand a map and a chart, and we understand the need for why, but I do think that I would hope that the school district might consider stepping back and realizing that this, I do think that everyone has done a really good job addressing this, but we are kind of doing a Band-Aid approach to a seemingly much larger topic. I liked the comment that Cedar Mill and Terra Linda have significantly smaller numbers, but we're going to kind of move 2 neighborhoods and hope that it solves overcrowding, which it doesn't seem like it's really going to solve the larger topic. We're going to send kids to portables. So even the graph that was shown, that the physical school does not, I mean, these kids are going to go from a pandemic to another school to portables. I just think that we're maybe losing touch a little bit on what this could do for the children. And I just wanted to kind of mention that part, that my son, at least, I'll only speak for him. He's in 3rd grade. He came from Oak Hills because this is a new development. All of these kids have transitioned schools already. I think we know that all of these kids are coming in from new schools already. We're going to reassign. I'll finish. I'll finish real quick. I'll wrap up.
Yeah, if you could wrap it up, please, that would help.
I'm just going to say that he had to do school through the pandemic, switching schools already. We chose a school that he could finish out with. For him to now leave is just a huge transition for him. And I do not think that this is really putting children first. And I just would hope that the school would step back and kind of think through allowing all children that are already going to finish off and go from there.
Thank you.
Next up is Diego Saldana.
Thank you. And thank you for all the explanation, work and details. It's super clear. We have a challenge and we have to face it, right? And I probably have a lot of questions, but I want to raise the main one, which is related to security, right? One of the reasons of selecting Bonny Slope was related to the security of the building and how it was well organized and well placed. And speak about Findlay, right? And based on the numbers that you just show, portable classrooms will be a reality. And we need to deal with this reality of the portable classroom. So I want to understand which are the measures that BSCD will be providing, right, to ensure security for the students, that they will be in portable classrooms, and which is not a reality today, and which is not a reality that we are facing in Bonny Slope. So I'm super concerned about security and how BSCG will be ensuring that our kids are safe.
Thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to share with us with your remaining time?
The other one, it's I feel we are speaking about a lot of challenges, right? COVID and disruptions and challenges for our kids, and all the kids are the same, right? And all the kids are going through disruptions. So I'm just also asking this community, right? As you speak about yourself and speak about the others, you think about the others and really think about community, right? So it's not because one area is going, the other one is not going, that this is a win. It's about all of us together and really make sure that we minimize disruptions for our kids. So it's a community ask for you all. That's it.
Thank you.
Next up is Lilik Farkesh. After Lilik is Diana Kincaid. And after Diana is Sunny, and that's spelled S-O-N-N-I.
Hello. So I don't know if my camera is working or not, but thank you very much for addressing and bringing the presentation with the numbers and showing the thorough thinking that was made. I do want to refer to some comments that was stated before. We are moved here to this neighborhood exactly because of the reason of Bonny Slope. I moved this year. I have a fourth grader and a first grader. We moved from Ireland here. And by going and investigating, and finding a house, a lot of this was involving with Bonny Slope. So as Ada was saying, the changes and the amount of changes, if it was because of the pandemic and because of, moving and settling in a community and in school that you're choosing, and a year later you're finding out, that only your oldest will be eligible for signing up for the program. I also have my first grader, and I think as Namita was saying before, it's very hard that one person is going to one school and the other is going to the other school. And as people was saying before of me, it does sound like, a band-aid, because it doesn't sound like Findlay has a lot of room. It is an older school. Part of the reason that me personally chose the school, it's a bigger a matter of diversity. And the diversity is not as high as in Bonny Slope. So I think, from my point of view, this is also something that I would like to know and to address. But yes, I think that we definitely need to put our kids in front, definitely, with all the changes that involved in the 2.5 years that was passing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Diana Kincaid.
Diana, you're on mute.
Okay, here we go. I understand that Bonny Slope is over capacity and it's important to reduce the current enrollment numbers. And I also understand that parents buying homes in specific school boundaries is not the top priority of this office. But in 2020, I called the Beaverton School District Long Range Planning Office, and I asked if there were any elementary boundary changes on the horizon, and I was told no. We proceeded to buy a home in Bonny Slope, and we've spent the last 2 years developing strong friendships and building community at Bonny Slope. Less than 2 years after I called the office, a change is being proposed that disrupts a large number of families. Our children have endured 3 school years affected by COVID. They did many months of school on Zoom, many more months in class, but with masks, eating lunch on the floor, and staying in their squares in class. We're aware of the potential lifelong social emotional impacts that this pandemic may have caused on our children. They're just now experiencing the first normal school year in the last 3 years. It would be devastating to our children if they're torn away from their community. So I urge you to adopt the alternative boundary adjustment map on the current PowerPoint. Thank you for including that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Stop. Next up is Sunny, S-O-N-N-I. After Sunny is Sanjuka. And then after Sanjuka is another Sunny, which is S-U-N-N-Y.
All right, yeah, hopefully you can see me. I think just a couple quick ones. Everyone's covered most of the stuff we wanted to talk about, but one thing is, again, I don't see how this problem was not foreseeable when we first moved into this neighborhood. This neighborhood is only 3 or 4 years old. And how was this not foreseen that there was going to be overcrowding? It's insane to me that we're having all these new families move in, have all their kids start school, and then rip them from that school to another school. It just seems insane to me that someone didn't think this was going to happen. When the urban growth boundary moves, people should be paying attention to this. Another thing, I don't really, this whole alternative proposal doesn't really seem to make sense. You're splitting up neighborhoods. It's, if we need to fix overcrowding, it should be all of the same kids going to the same place. Again, another thing, the whole thing about the bus, I don't really understand that whatsoever. What does the bus have to do with any of this? I don't understand why that's part of the conversation. And yes, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Sanjuka.
Hi, Thank you for this public meeting. Like many other parents here, we also moved into a new home, and the school was a very important decision making a point for us. We selected Bonny Slope. One of the main reasons was its infrastructure. It's a school with great culture, great community, and very good infrastructure. So moving from that school to Findlay, which is also a very good school, but containers should not be a regular classroom, and it should not be part of a solution. So in all the scenarios it's presented, students have to go into containers in Findlay. And the second point, which is really important for us, is we are working parents. We have a kindergartner and a newborn. Childcare is essential. For us, having on-site childcare, Student Stop and Bonny Slope was really, really crucial. And we are very happy with Student Stop, how it works. Findlay, we would lose that after-school childcare. And that's a really important point for us. This is my question. If you're moving these Bonny Slope kids who go to Student Stop or may in future go to Student Stop, will there be a provision at Findlay to have an after-school on-site childcare program? Thank you.
Okay, next up is Sunny, spelled S-U-N-N-Y. And after Sunny is Michael Reza and Oliver W.
Hello, guys.
And Sunny, just before you start, let me, I'm going to contradict myself here because it's a very quick response to a question. But to Sanjuka, Findlay does have an after-school care, and I will make sure to put that information in our response that we'll provide. Sunny, please begin.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. Like a lot of you guys said, we moved here to go to Bonny Slope, and my kids went through, all kids went through a lot, and they are adjusted to school, love school, going to school. But if I tell them to basically moving or changing school again, my little one is already devastated. He was crying just the other day. And I think it's going to be really hard. And I, even as a parent, I don't really care whether we have bus or not. I do love bus service here, but as long as we can go to Bonny Slope and finish school there, that will be great. Let's see. And I think if there is any chance for you guys to have that legacy program to include all the enrolled students here at Bonny Slope now, is it not possible at all? There are some parents who would not mind going to Findlay, but there are some parents like us here now who would like to stay in Bonny Slope.
Thank you.
Next up is Michael Reza.
Hi, thank you for the time. Being an administrator is tough, so I appreciate all of you at the Beaverton School District. It's a pretty tough challenge. I have two things. One is I think that I agree with the comments that have been said. One thing I think to also consider is our younger kids in terms of a legacy program. We have a soon-to-be kindergartner. I think the idea of her going to a school that her sister, who is currently enrolled at Bonny Slope, is not in, an unfamiliar school to both of those students, would be a challenge for her. I think, again, with the pandemic, for younger children especially, they have not had any kind of normalcy at all. And so, again, anything we can do for those legacy programs, I know that it's not typically for families and people who are currently in the boundaries, but I would definitely want to consider our younger kiddos as well, any kind of legacy program possibilities. The other piece of that is, I think there's a comment around diversity, and I think one of the richness of the Beaverton School District is the diversity of the district, and Bonny Slope as well. And I know it's a consideration that is used to look at boundary changes. These new neighborhoods are incredibly diverse. It's one of the reasons we wanted to be in this neighborhood. And I would hope that that's a consideration as we look at moving students and kind of these neighborhoods and what that would mean for the diversity of Bonny Slope. And I know that Findlay is a very diverse school. What I wouldn't want to do is reduce the diversity at Bonny Slope and increase the diversity of Findlay. With those current boundary considerations, I think that's a loss for the students at Bonny Slope, honestly. I just want to make sure that that's something that's been thought about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Oliver W. After Oliver is Kristen Cabell and Gohar Shafiq.
Good evening, everybody. This is my first participation in one of these public meetings. I grew up in Italy, and it's not a format that I'm used to, but I very much appreciate the ability for all of us to express our views and opinions. And I'd like to start out with the fact that, you know, the pandemic, we couldn't program for that. That was unexpected, right? We had to move quick. Everybody had to figure out, schools, parents, everybody in the community, how to survive and make life livable. This boundary adjustment, to some earlier comments, does not or should not come as a surprise. The urban boundaries have been designed a while back, and I'm very thankful for my neighbors and my very local community for letting us know that this was happening, because by the time we got the mailer, we heard some rumors from teachers, we heard from our neighbors, but it seems a bit rushed. And it also seems a Band-Aid, very localized. How do we solve Bonny Slope, potentially creating a problem at Findlay? And, you know, for us as taxpayers and constituents, I mean, we'd like to see all of Cedar Mills. What does it mean for Terra Linda and the other schools, right? It's a complicated puzzle, and moving kids around, you know, changing their teachers, their friendships, you know, their routine, especially after an event like the pandemic, is a big deal, right? And before now we swiftly move to solve what appears to be a big problem, to create a larger problem perhaps at Findlay, I would very much like to see a comprehensive solution to this. This being said, you know, in our own, you know, neighborhood, if you want, we came up with a counter proposal. And I would add to that, though, looking at the larger issue, you know, that's just looking at, well, we'd like our kids to stay, but I understand everybody else that's in the community and like to stay in that community. And to me, what goes unanswered and is the big elephant in the room is what's going to happen next, right? One of us asked 2 years ago, are the school boundaries going to move? And the answer was no.
Mr. Oliver, we're going to have to ask you to wrap up your comments here.
That's my big deal. I mean, I'd like to see the big picture. I think we're a very strong community, an area with a lot of resources and a lot of mental horsepower and people that care. We can do better than this. This is not in line with what I would expect the Beaverton School District to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Kristen Cabell.
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us and to provide some more details about your proposal, as well as include the alternative counter proposal into consideration. I think a couple of my questions or comments are around the numbers that I'm seeing and some of the what was read in the 2021 long range facility plan, stating that there's a desire to eliminate modular buildings wherever possible and to use permanent capacity when building the long range plan. And so when I look at both options within the original proposal and the counter proposal, the numbers that I'm seeing in 3 of the 4 options, low and high for Findlay, are using those portables, where in Bonny Slope, within one of them, you're at least getting to a point where you're like using those a lot less, as well as potentially not at all. Additionally, Bonny Slope has operated at 650 kids around there for the last 7-8 years, and that hasn't really seemed to be much of an issue. I completely understand where we are today, and that is not acceptable. And so I'm in support of the counter proposal, and also want to call out that I do know that Findlay has
has a after school program. I'm not sure if they have a before school or summer school program. That said, when I did contact and reach out to them, I was told that we could put our name on a wait list for next school year already. I'm not really sure how that program is going to be able to handle an influx of however many of the 130 kids that you're proposing move to that school that participate in Student Stop to be able to take into that program, or potentially not at all with a wait list, as well as I was told there are significant differences between the two programs. So anything more on that would be crucial for us to understand before this decision is final, because we really rely on that program. And that is it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next up is Gohar Safiq.
Yep, thank you.
And we will, if we have time, we have one more, and it will be Maria Barantes.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Sparks, for your time this evening. You've done a great job hosting and putting this together. I do want to communicate that I support what Kristen just outlined, and also Diana Kincaid with the alternative approach. The only reason we purchased the home we did and moved to this area was specifically to go to Bonny Slope. We did not want to go to Findlay nor other school in this area. It was intentionally for the Bonny Slope. And so not only, is that a huge investment from a monetary perspective, but also emotionally for us and our kids. They have been attached to the school now. And as folks have mentioned, Bonny Slope is a huge community, and it's been a phenomenal experience so far for the 2 years that we've been part of it. And we definitely want to continue supporting to go to Bonny Slope, and whatever we need to do to make that happen. We will support that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Next up is Maria Barantes.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, my concern is I know that we have to resolve now, but I would like to have a permanent solution. Right now, I feel that we are just moving one problem to another place, and we will have the same problem again. For me, if I think that my daughter will go to the school in a portable, maybe not safe, I don't know, or not nice, it doesn't look like very good for me. I don't have nothing against the school. I know it's a very, very good school with good scores, but this is my concern, because I think that we will move to this school, and in a couple of years we will have the same problem, and they will be in a container, not necessarily I can see like in school. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, that does it for the public testimony portion. Thank you. I've got about 8 pages of notes here, so thank you very much. Robert, if you could call up the PowerPoint here, and we could come to a conclusion for this evening. So our next step here is we will meet with those who are interested, an opportunity to come over to Findlay Elementary. This is not a meet and greet with staff. It's not like back to school night or anything like that, but you'll have an opportunity to meet with the principal over there if you're interested. We can do kind of a mini tour of, like not go through the whole building, but show you around a little bit. We can, if you want to talk with me for a bit, we can do that too. The meeting is for an hour, and that is a hard hour. There is a PTO meeting starting at 7 o'clock at Findlay. So you can go to the PTO meeting if you wish, but the principal is going to need to leave at that point to go to that meeting. So you can stay, you can leave, it's okay. We will not be doing a presentation. We will not be doing testimony like tonight. This is really an opportunity to put eyes on the building and speak with the principal if you'd like to. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your very considered testimony. And I would ask you to be sure to keep the our webpage linked and go check it frequently, because we will update it. For example, we will have tonight's PowerPoint up on the webpage. If it's not up there already, it will be here shortly. And as I mentioned before, with the list of questions here, we will meet together and prepare responses to those questions, which we will then publish on our webpage also. Hopefully we'll do that by the end of the week, but if not, certainly by the beginning of next week. So thank you very much. And I would just request that our BSD staff hang on for just a moment. So good evening and thanks very much.
Thank you.